On a clear day, if you live in Point Roberts, Washington, you can see across Boundary Bay, and yet, not what lies ahead.
Canada's, it's right there.
It is important that people have a geographic understanding of where Point Roberts is situated so that they don't marry us into this big group of Washington State and all the other border towns. We aren't like any other border town. We basically exist inside of Canada.
Rena Andrioli is among the 1,300 people who live in this U.S. exclave who also feel stuck behind the 49th parallel.
You feel like you're forgotten almost.
Grace Hatinga is 15, a gymnast.
Delta Hockey Academy.
Younger brother Noah, a hockey standout.
I can't get there.
Piper Nissen is a Blaine sophomore softball star.
That's what we do. I'm just not too far away.
There is Ryan and Sean Hepner, brothers in the BC baseball circuit.
You know, the year that I really need to make my mark.
And Jack Proctor is ready to start his junior year in Canadian prep football.
We're basically no options because both education and amateur sport is deemed non-essential.
The border closure because of COVID is now forcing the kids and their families into difficult decisions to keep their educational and athletic futures intact.
It's frustrating and it will break apart families. He's worked so hard. I don't want to think about someone else making his lunch and hugging him at night, and we won't maybe be able to see him till Christmas if it doesn't change. So I feel like they've been forgotten. It's hard.
To a person, the families say the border between this Whatcom County town and the BC mainland has become extremely restrictive. Point Roberts has a small elementary school, and the kids, up until this spring, have enjoyed the ability to further their education in Canadian schools, some of which are returning to class and the field next month. Yet, there is no ability to go back and forth from home to school or practice. Cross for class, and the kids would be forced to quarantine in Canada for 2 weeks.
We're so regionally isolated, it makes it that much more compounding for us.
Christopher Carlton is, by definition, the fire chief for Whatcom County District 5, but he's also been leading a community campaign, writing this letter to U.S. President Donald Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau asking for changes for an area filled with dual citizens and families, and as of this date, not a single positive test for coronavirus. You can tell just how isolated Point Roberts is, that in the middle of the afternoon, close to rush hour, there is no wait here at the border, and we can stand right in the middle of the street. The chief, the parents, and kids point to the fact that Canada has developed specific rules with ports of entry for Alaskans cutting the country through the lower mainland, and that it could develop something similar for kids attending BC or Whatcom County schools.
And we feel that if you're basically saying, their education is non-essential, really what you're saying is our children are not essential. You're telling my child and both my daughters that they're not essential.
In the meantime, the Hatingas are trying to stay active in the backyard, and like the other families, decide to quarantine long-term with a Canadian friend and whether to leave their American home behind.
I'm going to have to move to Ladner in Canada without my family.
And, are you seriously considering that?
If I can't get there and the border doesn't change, then yes.
In Point Roberts, Washington, Chris Daniels, King 5 News.